Hey there, old man. Alright, so in today's video I'm going to be showing you guys how I rig up an inexpensive and effective parts cleaner. Reason I'm doing that is to hopefully remove some of that baked on car oil that impregnated the parts. Also some of that dirt and carbon buildup inside the runners of the manifold. I'm also going to be cleaning some of these parts here. Anything that doesn't have electrical stuff attached to it, because that I won't be able to submerge. Everything else is going to go inside the homemade tank. So let me show you guys the setup. I'm going to be choosing the parts first and cut you guys back in. And just look at the slack on that chain. Okay, so I have pretty much everything that I feel comfortable submerging. It's a harmonic balancer, the intake manifold, a few brackets. This is the timing cover, the cylinder head, and the valve cover. So this is the condition they're in, so I'm putting them in. And now onto the fluid that we're going to be using. Alright, so what I have here is some all-purpose degreaser. This I got it at a store chain here in California named the Smart and Final. I don't know if you guys have that, but any sort of a heavy-duty degreaser will work. I'm going to just go ahead and pour this in, and I'm going to dilute some of it with water. This was around $5 for a gallon of this. Alright, I'm gonna get a little bit more from another one. Here we go. Are you kidding me? Alright, so that's about a gallon and a half. I'll go ahead and add 2 gallons. And the rest, I'm going to just add water. Okay, so now that it's nice and filled up with water, I had to rearrange the position of the parts a little bit because it was important to me for the cylinder head to be fully submerged. The next step, I'm going to be connecting the water heater, which is this unit here that I purchased off of eBay. This was extremely cheap. It was only around $6 or $7. The way it works is like you submerge this before you connect it, and then you plug it up, and this will bring up the temperature of the water. However, this is not something that you want to leave unattended. You have to keep an eye on it, because if you leave it long enough, it'll continue getting the water hotter and hotter and hotter, and it'll bring it up to a boil. It might even evaporate, and you don't want that. So you want to be looking at this and also if you have kids or pets, like don't let them come near that area. So I'm gonna be connecting it and cut you guys back on so you guys can see. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna go ahead and connect it now. There it is. So like I said, do not leave it unattended. Just sit around and watch it. It is gonna take a little bit for the water to get hot, but afterwards it must be supervised. Alright, so it's been about an hour and 30 minutes. I had this heating up the whole time. Temperature of the water is it's warm, it's not yet too hot, so I'm gonna leave it here for another 2 hours or so till it gets really hot. So you can see the color of the water has already changed completely. A lot of the oil and carbon that was inside the manifold and the heads it's starting to release, and that's what caused that changing color there. So I'm gonna come back when it's really hot and see what it looks like. Alright, so it's been about another 2 hours, and I wanted to show you because I pulled out some of the pieces that weren't quite as dirty to begin with. I pulled the harmonic balancer and the motor mount out of the solution, and I wanted to show you guys that it actually does some pretty good job at cleaning. I can't find any remnants of oil or crud. As you can see, it's all bare metal, so it did a pretty good job on these. You can see here, this is the motor mount, and you can see some of the factory overspray on it. This did have a little bit of oil and caked on stuff, but it all came off. So this are ready to prepare and paint. So the solution now, it has been sitting here, has already turned several shades darker due to the extra oil and carbon buildup that dissolved into the solution. So it's starting to come up the temperature. It's pretty hot now, you know. I'm gonna let this sit here for maybe another hour or two, and hopefully they'll come out just as good as the other stuff that I pulled out already. Okay, so before we let this sit here any longer, I'm gonna pull out one of the pieces and see the progress, just because I'm curious as well. See, this is the timing cover here. I'm not sure if you can see that. Let's see if that is already loose. Wow, look at that. Came right off. Stuff that's been there for almost 30 years. You can see that works pretty good. I'm gonna leave it there longer and come back to it. See how easy that comes off? Okay guys, so it's the next day here, and I wanted to show you guys the result of the cleaning that we did last night. After I turned off the camera, I stayed up a little bit longer than that, and I took the parts out of the out of the tub, and I rinsed them, so you can see this is what they're gonna look like. I'm pretty happy with how they came out. Most of the oil and gunk is completely gone. I mean, there's some very light amounts left inside, but I can live with that. Look at the valve cover. That looks pretty good. It's the leftover paint on it. And if I turn it around, even the inside of it, where usually oil bakes into it, looks pretty clean. This is the timing cover there as well, cleaned up. I just hit it with a toothbrush and it was really clean after I rinsed it. Everything looks pretty good. The cast iron parts are completely degreased as well, and the head is pretty degreased as well. Only inside the runners there's some areas that have a little bit of a buildup left, but let me see if I can show you guys. Let me place down the camera for a bit so I could flip down the cylinder head. There we go. Okay. So yeah, some very light areas where you could still see a little bit of carbon buildup right there too. But like I said, that's all pretty good. And there you have it. That's a cheap way to clean your parts at home without having to rely on a place to hot tank them. I guarantee you, actually, if you take them to a place to get hot tanked, sometimes you won't end up with results like this. You know, I mean, at least that's been my experience. So I rather do it this way, and I'm pretty happy now because I saved money, and to me I ended up with better results. All right, thank you guys for watching.